Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to tonight's webinar, Let's Talk About Aging. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Robert Orie and I'm the CEO of Montefiore. We are thrilled that we have over 80 people joining us online tonight as we continue with our Spotlight series that was launched late last year, shining a spotlight on all the issues that affect all the members of the community and their loved ones. I appreciate that people are zooming in from different locations around Sydney and indeed even maybe broader afield. And so to begin with, I would just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians and owners of the land from which you're all joining this webinar. On behalf of Montefiore, we acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contribution they make to the life of our cities and regions. And we pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging, and we commit ourselves to the ongoing work of reconciliation throughout our country. Tonight we will try and demystify as best we can the aged care system and particularly look at the range of care options that are offered by Montefiore. And we do appreciate that choosing an aged care provider is a big decision for families, and it can be a challenging system to navigate. Now we do have a chat function available for this session. So if you are compelled to ask any questions, please feel free to use the chat function, and we'll do our best over the next hour to try to get to those questions and answer them. But if for some reason we don't get to all of them, we will try to get back to you after the sessions with the answers to your questions and some additional information. But to begin with, how about I just give you a brief overview of Montefiore and the full continuum of care that we provide. So Montefiore is a not-for-profit charitable organisation that has been providing aged care services for over 130 years. And I'm pleased to say we have a very, very good reputation for doing that. We provide what is known as the continuum of care. And what that means is that we are able to support a person's care needs throughout the aging experience. And that includes a range of different services such as our home care, which is an in-reach service, Montefiore Help at Home, which provides services within a person's residence. And that can range from very domestic level services like assistance with cleaning or cooking or shopping or even companionship, to personal care such as showering or dressing, to higher clinical care needs such as wound dressing or medication management, and even rehabilitation through physiotherapy services and so forth. So it's a very, very large spectrum of services that we can deliver to people whilst they're still living in their own homes. We also offer retirement living at our apartments at Randwick, which is co-located to our residential aged care campus. We have a range of well-appointed apartments, both 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom and 3 bedroom. And they're generally referred to as independent living units or ILUs, but they really aren't independent. They really do provide a level of assistance and support that really help a person be able to live quite comfortably within those apartments. And they include, for example, 30 minutes of housekeeping allocated to each apartment weekly, access to shuttle bus services, a continental breakfast served in the club lounge and lobby bar area daily, concierge that can take delivery of parcels and organise taxis and so forth for you. And of course, there is a range of communal areas and amenities that people can access, such as club lounge and lobby bar that I've mentioned, a cinema, a pool, a gymnasium, and beautiful grounds. So very, very comfortable living. And then, of course, we have our residential aged care offering, which we have both on the North Shore and the eastern suburbs, which provides higher levels of care for those that are perhaps particularly frail or those that have maybe some form of dementia and require a secure, safe environment to be accommodated. By providing all those services, we really do support people through the entire aging process. With the retirement living, we are able to provide additional support up and above those that I've mentioned through our home care And this can be delivered within the apartments in a very cost-effective way, because we have the resources of the residential aged care campus nearby, and it is far more efficient for us to deliver services than it would be if you were living in your own home and staff had to drive out and be transported out to be able to deliver those services. So we provide a very broad range of services for our clients, we do believe that by doing so, we can support people whatever stage they are through the aging process. Now, to help unpack that a little bit tonight, we have a team of our own experts from Montefiore to help us. I've got Amanda Guinane, our General Manager of Help at Home, Jill Fellows, our Retirement Village expert who oversees our M by Montefiore Retirement Living at Randwick, and Thomas Kramer, who's our Director of Residential Aged Care. So with those experts at hand, I'm sure we can get through probably most of the questions that you could have, and hopefully provide you some insights and some assistance with navigating this very, very complex system. So maybe, Thomas, if I could maybe start with you. What have you found have been the most common triggers and motivations for people to start discussing aged care options, and where would you suggest is the first place that people should start looking?
I think that's a really good question, Robert. Thanks. I think everyone's journey in life is very different, and I think that's very much the same when it comes to seeking aged care services. And so, I think as people are starting to notice changes or having difficulties around their own home, often that can start to be a trigger for them to start seeking in-reach services like the Help at Home or other community-based services. It also can be a time when they start to look at alternate accommodation that they may want to move into, ILU type arrangements where, yes, you have that independence. It's your own home and you can come and go out of that easily, but you also have additional supports in place just to help you when you need it. And obviously, I think there's that other end of the spectrum where, unfortunately, sometimes people are very able, they're at home by themselves, and something unfortunate happens. Maybe they have an accident, or someone who's supporting them to live at home, it becomes unwell and they can no longer support them. And that's when people sometimes look to moving directly into, say, a residential care type option. So I think everyone's motivations or the triggers may be different, but it's often related to a change in their circumstance. And I suppose the one piece of advice on that question would be, don't wait for a crisis to start having the conversation around an option to seek additional support. I think having a plan in advance is really helpful, because trying to manage through a crisis, you're often dealing with lots of things and it can be hard to make big decisions around the future. There are some, aged care as a whole can be pretty daunting and complex to navigate. And so I think there's a couple of really good key points out there. There is the My Aged Care website. And that can be a really good source for people to go to learn more about community options, Help at Home style options. It certainly can also support people to make decisions around residential aged care. But it is also pretty overwhelming, to be honest. And I think one of the best things people can do is probably reach out to people like Alison in our admissions team, who can support them through what assessments they need if they wanted to access Commonwealth funded aged care, but also then perhaps to point them in the right direction if it was to look at something like ILU. And knowing that you've got help at hand to help navigate that, I think, is a really nice thing for people to know.
You make a really good point, Thomas. With aged care, it is unfortunately quite a complex system to navigate. And often when you do need the care, if you do wait, I think you made the point, don't wait to a crisis. If the crisis does come along, you often need to access care quickly, and sometimes it's not quite that easy to do. And so I think it would be very sensible for people who may not need care right now, but could potentially need care in the not too distant future, to really start looking at their options now, so that they understand what the process is and they can be, well prepared for, if and when they do need to access those services. And you give some good advice there. The My Aged Care portal website is a very good one to start looking at. And also reaching out, and it doesn't just have to be to Montefiore, but reaching out to other aged care providers or communal organisations that can help navigate you in the right direction and give you the information that you actually need. Yeah,
absolutely.
You mentioned it starts often in home care. People living in their own home, and they get to a point where they need some kind of extra support, or they would benefit from extra support. So maybe, Amanda, over to you. When is the right time, do you think, to consider home care, and what are the advantages of actually receiving home care services in your own home?
Thank you, Robert. Well, I guess for me, if we take it a step back, I guess before I talk about the time to consider home care, what's really important to understand is that there is actually a significant weight on home care package allocation. And that's something that a lot of people don't know before they embark on trying to access the home care package. And like Thomas says, don't wait for a crisis. So it's all about understanding how long it's going to take, and some even low level or basic care packages can take up to 3 to 6 months, even longer for your more complex care packages. So Help at Home really do recommend applying for a package once you notice tasks around the house sometimes getting a little bit difficult for you to do on your own, pushing that lawnmower, or getting in and cleaning all of your windows for that spring clean. These are some of the things that a package can actually pay and support. And I think it's important that you don't wait too long to get your application in the system, especially while you're independent in your home. And we can talk about later how that all looks, and we can flesh that out a little bit. But the second part of the question was, what are the advantages around having home care in your home? And I think one of the greatest advantages is that as a consumer, you are able to choose your own provider. And you can really do your due diligence, and you can shop around and make sure, the comparison of costs and different types of fees. That's up to you. That's your decision. And that's really important that you control those decisions. Another advantage is that you can stay in your own familiar surroundings. You're not having to uplift and move anywhere. You're around your family home, your marital home, and around neighbours and people that you've known for a long time. And that's really important to help stay connected to the community. You also have control over what care you receive and the type of carer that you feel would suit you best. And that is absolutely crucial for this to work. You need, even if it's companionship and it's ongoing for a couple of hours a week, it's so important that you gel with that carer, that you get on with that carer and you can form a professional relationship where you are getting exactly what you need from that carer. This is all about consumer-directed care, which means that it's about the client or consumer being in control and independent within their own home until such time as they're not able to make these type of care decisions on their own. It's around tailored care that can suit you. And I believe one of the other most important advantages is that when you are in your home, you've got your loved one next to you, whether it be your wife or your husband. And what's also great about having home care, people coming in to support you when the time's right, is that as the decline can happen and will happen, that home care support will actually give your primary carer some respite. So we've got a lot of scenarios where the carer will come into a home and give the wife or the husband a break to go out and do things on their own independently, because we know we've seen it all too often with carers, primary carers, when they're in the home, they just really focus on the loved one. So this is another opportunity to stay in your own home and have some respite for your husband or wife as well.
Okay, well, you certainly covered a lot of benefits of home care. You make a really good point around the packages, Amanda. For those who are attending the seminar, who may not be too familiar with it, maybe just explain the kind of different packages and the difference maybe between fee-for-service and packaged care. Yeah.
Absolutely. So your low and basic care starts at level 1 or 2. And this is what I'm talking about, home care packages that are allocated to you by the government after you have had an ACAT, which is an aged care assessment team. Well, that's the ACAT team, but they come out and they give you an assessment. They assess your needs and they go away and they determine your eligibility, and they give you or allocate you a level 1, a level 2, a level 3, or a level 4. Now, levels 1 and 2 are very basic to low care, and then you've got your 3 and 4, which is more high care needs for a particular consumer. And that's where the waiting list can come. That can be quite a while because you're waiting for other people to relinquish their packages or depart my aged care or the department and no longer have services. So that's one part of our business. Another part is the fee-for-service component of our business, which Robert just mentioned. So that's for we do have a lot of fee-for-service clients that are using our services before they get allocated a package. So they're getting the benefit of understanding and getting the benefits of people coming in and supporting them in their home while they're waiting for that package. There are some aged people out there that are self-funded retirees and may not be eligible for a home care package. We don't see that very often, but it's certainly out there, and that's something that we have. Unfortunately, we can't control that. That's something that happens between the department and Centrelink and the consumer as to eligibility and how much you can and can't receive. But I think for us, sorry, what other part of the question was there? I feel like I've answered it, but
yeah, no, I think you've answered it really well. I mean, the package is obviously a government-funded package, so people get funding, yes. And like you said, levels 1 and 2 are quite low levels of funding. Levels 3 and 4 are much higher.
So your level 1, sorry, you're getting around $9,000 a year for a level 1 and around $56,000 a year for a level 4. So that's a big jump. But please note that that's not paid to you in a lump sum. That is something that the government gives it. They call it a subsidy, and it's given month by month to the provider. And we actually supply the services, and then we claim through the department for the services we've provided to the consumers.
Correct.
So a lot of people think it's a lump sum.
It's a big lump sum, yeah.
And
it's also important to note that when you go through that assessment process to be eligible to get a package and you get allocated a package, that doesn't necessarily mean that you you become eligible for a package, but doesn't mean you necessarily get allocated one straight away. As you pointed out, Amanda, there can often be a very long wait. And it is something that I know that the government is trying to rectify because they've been highly criticised for the lack of packages available out there. People are waiting long times for packages. They are trying to rectify it, but the reality is that you can be waiting a long time at the moment for a package. What advice, is there a single piece or any advice you could give somebody who is looking for a home care provider? Obviously, we're very biased because we're Montefiore and we think we do an amazing job. But if there is any advice around how they can go about choosing a home care provider, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I think consumers are getting very savvy these days, and it's good to see. I think it's important that families and consumers do their due diligence and shop around. You've got to make sure that a provider can deliver on the care that they're promising and meet your expectations. Going back to the consumer-directed care, it's really important that you're very clear with what your needs are and what you would like. That being said, because you're only getting a certain portion each year, it's our responsibility as a home care provider to make sure that we work within that budget and make sure that all of your services are included in that budget and we're not overspending. Some clients do like to add a fee-for-service component on top of their home care package because they want more services, and that's purely an individual choice. But it is also important that when you do go and reach out to a home care provider, that they take the time to sit with you and work walk through, how the services work, what you can purchase through your package, what services you are able to get being on a level 2 versus a level 3, for example, and feel that you have full transparency and understand all the facets of the services and purchases, because a lot of people go in thinking they can buy X, Y, Z, and we do have to follow guidelines from the department to make sure we're spending government money ethically and in the right way so that we can keep you at home safe and independent for as long as possible. Now, if a provider doesn't meet with you and just sort of sends you through a contract and says, you know, here you go, we'll start services next week, I'd be really concerned about that, because we at Help at Home, we go in, we have care coordinators that go in, they sit with the client, and even though you've had your ACAT, your aged cat assessment done by ACAT, we do another assessment and we look at your environment, your mobility, everything from cognition to the walls around you, just to make sure that we understand exactly who you are. We look at your cultural background, your likes, your dislikes, what interests have you got? And that's how we can build a care plan that's tailored specifically for you. And that's really important. It's not off the shelf, it's absolute individual care. And I think we have a very successful business model when onboarding new clients. We are transparent about our costs. We talk through our recruitment process and how we find our staff. We even talk about our COVID protocol and PPE wearing and all of those things that are still quite new to our business, but we've had to embrace over the last couple of years. And I think the key takeaway here is be comfortable before you sign. You can change providers once you sign, so please don't feel that you're stuck with someone forever. But it's important that before you sign that dotted line, you've done your due diligence and you're comfortable to move forward.
Okay, we've got a question on the chat line, which is a very good one. What happens if your care needs change as you're waiting for a package to be approved? So in other words, if you were originally assessed as a level 1 or 2 and now you need a 3 or 4 while you're waiting, do you need to be reassessed by ACAT to actually get that package?
Yeah, so you'll get a letter saying that you've been allocated a package, and what you need to do, or someone who's authorised to speak on your behalf to My Aged Care, you need to ring them and explain that your circumstances have changed. You may have had a fall, you've come out of hospital, and how you were before the fall, you're very different now, you know, because of time past. I have to say, though, that we are seeing packages come through quicker than they have been over the last couple of years. So that's good news. But I have, and you've made a good point, whoever's asked that question, we have seen people being allocated a 1 and they needed 3 or 4. Yeah. So if you do choose to come with Monty at that juncture where you do get that allocation, we can help and advocate on your behalf to get another ACAT completed. And we can work with your GP to get letters and discharge paperwork from hospitals, whatever the case may be, to advocate so that we can get that that higher level quicker than what you've already been waiting for that initial level. And we see that happen. It does, the higher levels do come through quicker, you know, if there is a dramatic change in circumstance.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. Let's move over to retirement living now for a while. Jill, so throwing to you, what do you think are the motivators for people that want to move into a retirement village, and why do you think retirement village living is so appealing for people?
Well, I think there are some main drivers. Of course, we're before, usually, not always, but we're usually before the need of home care. So what happens is often people look at their home and think it was great for when they were raising a family. They needed all those bedrooms, they needed the big garden and so forth. And then all of a sudden it's not so great. It can be for lots of reasons. It can be financial reasons, maintaining a very large home, particularly if it's an aging home. We have a lot of people who say, oh, you know, I've got a bill for a new roof, etc. It's also the time that it takes. So it's the cost and the time. So that's often a trigger. It can also be related to a health trigger. Maybe there's, you know, a bit of arthritis starting to set in, or some other physical frailties that make doing those sorts of things difficult as well. So that's one of the big triggers. Another one is safety and security, and I always divide this into two groups, so personal safety and financial security. So from a personal perspective, if someone, for example, has lost their partner and they're feeling not so, feeling just a little bit more vulnerable in their home, living alone, that can be a trigger for some people to come in. Also knowing that the apartments themselves are secure. You can't get in and out without the security cards, etc. So that's comforting, knowing that there's staff around, and also that they're supported by an emergency call system. And I think that's one of the best parts. You mentioned that earlier, Robert. And I think particularly Monty's emergency call system, it's responded to on site by the staff. It doesn't go to a call centre. So you've got someone there. There are protocols about how long it takes someone to actually come to you. So, for example, in the first instance, it'll go to the concierge desk, and they're there from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Then after that, it goes to the security team. So they'll head up, particularly if there's a health emergency. They'll be calling, for example, an RN from the aged care facility, and depending on the conversation, maybe an ambulance. You can cancel those, but it's good to know that that's there. That's peace of mind. And then from the financial perspective, I think a great thing about Montefiore, the way it's set up, is monthly payments. You know exactly what you're going to be paying every single month. And we have a formula for how much that can go up by each year. So you can plan your finances around that. And there won't be any special levies. And Robert, we've had quite a few people through lately who live in apartments. So it's not just about houses, but who live in apartments. They've had special levies. Only a couple of weeks ago, one gentleman was telling us $250,000. That's a lot of money to come up with. So, so you know what you're paying. You can manage your finances, and that's great. And I think another key driver for people is the community. So, you know, as we age, as people know, we can sometimes become a little more isolated in our homes, particularly if we don't have a lot of family around us. And so moving into a village, and this ties into the second part of the question as well, it's one of the best parts about the village. So Monty offers these amazing facilities. The cinema is one of my favourite places in the village. We've got 8 sessions of movies a week. There are multi-purpose spaces, much like a hotel. And those spaces are designed for all sorts of activities. So things like there's bridge and Scrabble, there's exercise classes, from gentle exercise classes, Tai Chi, there's even Zumba. So whatever the residents really want, there's the ability for them to join together. We have a wonderful, Linda is the coordinator, a lifestyle coordinator. She works with the residents as well, and there's an amazing array of activities going on, and there'll be more to come. Even French, you can even brush up on your French. So those sorts of things are fantastic. And there's a pool as well, fabulous pool. It's like a spa area down there. And I think another thing about the village is the aesthetics of the apartment. So the photographs don't do it justice for anyone who has been on the website. The images are good, but you don't really see the fine detail in the buildings. And I've worked in a lot of really beautiful villages, but this particular village outshines them all, in my view. The detail in there, which most people comment on when they come in, the technology, for example, the high quality finishes in everything. So there's nothing like moving into something new, and especially of that calibre as well. The services, we've got a village manager, there's a concierge team there, and they're the first point of contact should you need something, as Robert, as you said, you know, calling a taxi, if there's any maintenance requests, and of course all of that is done, the repairs and maintenance, which makes very easy living, and transport and cleaning. So they're the main reasons I think that people come, and certainly they find that what is offered is at such a high level that people are extremely happy in their homes.
Thanks, Jill. You mentioned some of the financial benefits, and you mentioned that there's no special levies because Montefiore, we cover all repairs and maintenance and capital works that relate to the building completely. There's no stamp duty payable, you know, on the entry contribution that you pay on the way in, which is not dissimilar to when you purchase an apartment, but there's no stamp duty, so you save a lot of money there.
Yes.
But one of the other benefits is related to if there's a couple living in the apartments and one of them actually needs to go to residential aged care, and the fact that because Montefiore owns both the retirement living village or the apartments and the residential aged care, there's peace of mind for people that firstly, they get priority access into residential aged care. The partner that may be still living in the apartment can be close by and can access them quite easily. But most importantly, there's no financial burden for the couple because Montefiore owns both. We can access the equity that the person has in the apartment or the couple have in the apartment to fund the residential aged care accommodation. So people don't have to need to find more money, basically. Now, if it was a retirement village, even if the village was right next door to a nursing home, so it's nearly co-located, but it was operated by another provider, for that one person of the couple to go to residential aged care, they would have to find an entry contribution or an accommodation payment to get into that nursing home. And that can be very stressful for people. So that's another huge advantage as I see it, you know, in terms of that.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree, Rob. Most people who come to us ask us about what happens next. And what's wonderful is that we can say to them, well, we've got the in-home care packages, so you can be supported in your home, and should you need to go into aged care, you're in the same environment. So you've got your friends around you that you've made over that period of time, and it's very easy to be able to move from one area to the next into the aged care, so it isn't taxing on the partner who has to go across and visit. So that's very important for a lot of people.
And of course, as I think I said at the beginning, we support people in the aging process and to stay in the apartments for as long as possible. But there may come a time, it might be because a person, you know, needs a secure environment because of dementia or some cognitive impairment, or there might be some reason. And so it's nice to know that peace of mind that it's there if you need it. Which probably leads me nicely to you now, Thomas, around residential aged care. So when do you think might be the time to consider residential aged care? You know, what should you be looking at?
Look, I think that's a really good question because, but I might say this up front though, that there is not just one type of residential aged care. And so there's lots of different types of care available in a residential aged care setting. And so the good news is that they start from supporting people that actually have reasonably low level of care needs, right the way through to people that are really needing lots and lots of assistance from potentially a number of staff at any given time. And so what is the right time to consider residential aged care really depends probably on a few factors. What's your circumstance at home or in the community? or are you in hospital and may not be able to come back into residential care, into your own home. And so if someone's living by themselves, they may seek to come into residential aged care earlier, because not only can we support the physical aspects of a person, but there is a community of people around. And so it's very much like what Jill was saying around having other people that you can socially engage with, but also receive that little bit extra support with medications, or support with some of your more complex healthcare needs that may need registered nurses to be there, but you still like going to the gym, or you like going to hydrotherapy. And we certainly support that right through residential aged care, but it's not the picture that some people may have. Residential aged care can be a really empowering environment for people with lower levels of care needs. For other people, they may be living at home, and they may be supported by an extended family and a high-level home care package. And so for them, they may decide to stay in their own home up until a point where perhaps their care needs are actually quite at a high level. And they may come into one of our high care services, where you'll see a lot more staff on shift, because there's a lot more time spent with each individual person to make sure they're well supported. And I think, so I probably go back to my first comment around everyone's journey is a bit different, but it's really important to have the plan, and so that it doesn't come as a surprise. And I think understanding, maybe putting some goals in place. If I am at home, and as Amanda was saying before around, I see that my family is starting to get a lot of carer stress or carer burnout. Maybe then that's time for me to start looking at it. Or maybe my mobility in the home is really, really difficult and problematic, or I might need very expensive home modifications. So maybe those could be triggers. But I do think being able to get support and advice through that process as well is really helpful. And so there are some great services out there. Certainly talking to people like Amanda from Help at Home, but also the admissions team here around what is on offer, because sometimes you don't actually know what could be supporting each individual person. And so that could be a trigger for you as well, just learning.
You mentioned some of the good advantages, and look, I think people often overlook or underestimate the importance of socialization. I've been in this industry for 36 plus years. And if there's one thing I've learned is that socialization is very important to the overall well-being of a person. Yeah. And I've seen sadly situations where families think they're doing the right thing by providing as much home care support to maintain a person in there. And we run a successful home care division, and Amanda and the team do an amazing job, and that is right up to a point. But there can become a point where the person who is being supported at home can get so socially isolated that even though they're receiving all the care they need, they're missing out on that very important aspect of their life. Yeah. So I think that you've raised a very important point. That is something that people should consider. You also talked about the different types of care, and there is a lot of different types of care, different levels. Obviously, dementia-specific care, which we specialise in. But there's also respite. You want to just have a bit of a chat about respite care offerings, because that's an option for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it goes back to that continuum, doesn't it? Where so someone may be at home, they're receiving support with Help at Home, and maybe their loved one is going in for some surgery. They might need to go into hospital. Knee replacement or is a common one that happens. And so the person may, a person may come in with us and stay with us for a short period of time on a temporary basis, and that can be a really wonderful thing. It gives the person coming into residential care a really good experience. They get that socialization, but it also provides the time for their extended family or loved ones to recuperate. And we've also had instances where people book in in advance, because they know that family are going away, or there may be something coming up. And other instances, to be honest, where people come in purely as a bit of a rest and recuperation. When you come into somewhere like Montefiore, you have these wonderful meals. you have staff that support you throughout the day. And so if you really you need a bit of a break and to be pampered and looked after, it can be a really wonderful way for not only the family to get some respite, but the person themselves to get some additional support.
Yeah.
You know, and I think talking through all those advantages around residential care, I think one of the greatest things that residential care can do is actually enable relationships to revert to what they originally were. You know, often people end up being in caring situations, which is wonderful. It can be a really lovely thing to look after a loved one.
Yeah.
But it also can be a challenge. And so when people come into residential care, we often see some of that care burden move out of that relationship, and it enables the connection, whether it's a child and their parent or a spouse, return to a much more normal relationship.
And one thing we haven't, and you touched on it a little bit there, but one thing we haven't mentioned is really the broad range of services available within residential aged care. Like, you know, we take it for granted that, you know, clinical care is a priority.
Yes.
But at Montefiore, we've got such a broad range of allied health and leisure and lifestyle stuff. You want to just give a brief overview of what's on offer for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think one of the things to consider about residential care is that you can do so much of it just like you would be doing in the community. We also host movies here, just very much similar to what Jill was talking about. So people have that connection. We have a wonderful allied health team that do things like run art classes. In fact, we had a resident recently come into care with us who had never done painting before, and then came here and found that they loved it, and they've won community art prizes in the broader community for their work. I think that's just fantastic that someone's actually learnt a new skill, enjoyed it so much, and then won acclaim for that after coming into care. It's a wonderful thing. We have all sorts of different types of exercise classes. And so that's things where very much similar when people would go out on an outing to go to the gym. Well, we do that in residential care too. People go on an outing and come to the gym where they're supported by trained professionals, not to mention outings themselves. So you get to go out on buses and get to go places. You know, there's the cafe, there's salons. So there's a whole range of that normal social aspect of your life where you get to go out to shops. In that same approach. And I think being able to, when the COVID situations allow, host your family as well into this environment and kind of continue those family engagements and relationships. And that's been a bit of a challenge over the last year in particular, but there is an end to that at some point, and we still get to do things like that now in residential care. So there's some amazing supports that can happen, and a continuity of those things that are meaningful to people from living in the community.
Yeah.
Also still continue when they come into care.
Yeah. You mentioned some of the kind of allied health services. I mean, that's probably one area that really sets Montefiore apart, the depth of it. We've got physiotherapists and exercise physiologists, occupational therapists, diversional therapists, leisure and lifestyle staff, creative therapists, etc., social workers. We've got a huge range. You mentioned examples of respite before around situations where potentially a carer needs to go somewhere, be that for an operation or something. But the other thing that we do quite big in is the respite for rehab work. So that might be somebody that's in their own home, perhaps getting a home care service or home care package, might have a fall, might break their hip, might go to hospital, and might not be, because of that, may not be able to go back home straight away. And it's a very supportive environment for them to then come into respite at one of our sites, for example, and get access to our physiotherapy. We have hydrotherapy pools at two of our main campuses at Randwick and Hunters Hill, and they can rehabilitate. And when they're at a point where they're able to go back home, they can go back home.
The respite is an amazing service that can happen into the community. And yeah. I can see actually a great question's come up on the chat around how hard is it to access, and how much does it cost? Accessing it is actually not that hard. We provide hundreds and hundreds of bed days or days of respite care every year. And so if anyone is seeking to access Respite, it's a phone call away. You do need to be approved by the aged care assessment team. So you need to have that ACAT assessment and be approved for Respite care. And we can support you to understand that process as well. And when it comes to the cost of care, Respite care is a daily fee. There's no other costs associated with it. But to go through each of the individual costs, it probably would be best to reach out to the admissions team, and they would be able to provide all of that information directly to anyone that wants it.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. Thank you. The other question that just came up on the chat was can you discuss a little more about self-funded retirees funding their own care? How costly is it to have some care twice each week, but maintaining one's independence? I'll let you answer that, Amanda, but I think the answer probably depends on what the service is that you're getting.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for your patience, Sue. I know you popped that up a little while ago, but we've been busily chatting away here. Look, Robert's exactly right. It really does depend what you're looking for. So our services and our approach to providing care for a consumer is no different whether you're a self-funded retiree or you're able and eligible to get a subsidy and government assistance. But in regards to the cost, if you were to look at companionship, transport, household or domestic assistance, we call it, those sort of tasks, you would be looking at around $55 an hour. That's as a self-funded retiree. And I'm sure we're going to share our details after this, so I'm more than happy to catch up with you later in the week if you've got any more questions around that, or if you've got any more questions now.
It's also important to realise that cost includes, the complete management of the service. So, yes, all of our staff are police checked. They're all properly trained. The care coordination is undertaken. If a person, if a carer is sick, another one has to be found to replace that person, etc., etc. It includes travel time and all of that. So it's an all-inclusive package. I've just noticed we are kind of creeping towards the end of the session. I know you've already covered this, Thomas, but there was a question here just around why shouldn't loved ones wait for the big sign in terms of resi care? I think you've kind of covered it, but was there any final kind of comments you wanted to make around that?
No, look, I think one of the things that we've heard a lot today is around understanding what's on offer out there. And so I think if you're waiting for a big sign or a big event to occur, you're actually it's going to make it harder for you to make a really well-informed decision around what type of service you want or what's going to be most meaningful for you. And so doing the research up front gives you peace of mind. It means that you feel confident in the decision that you're making, even if you don't make that decision now. But if you've done research and you understand what's important to you and what's on offer out there, when the time comes, you'll feel really comfortable in your decision. It can take away a lot of guilt that people feel as well. If you know that there's excellent services where people receive, not only great clinical care, but holistically, they feel empowered throughout their care journey. It removes a lot of the guilt that can be associated with people. So, I would never advocate for waiting for a big sign because it creates a lot more stress.
Yeah. Thanks, Thomas. There was a question, so I've just checked in the chat box because it'd be nice to be able to get to most of them if we can. There's a question here, which is actually quite an interesting one, and I'm happy to answer it. I've heard some talk in the community that the Montefiore is looking to switch from a not-for-profit model to a for-profit model. Is this true or even possible? What are your plans? The short answer to that is no. Montefiore is a not-for-profit organisation. But where I think the confusion might lie, and it gives us an opportunity to explain it a bit more, is the kind of financial model that Montefiore operates under. We are a benevolent charitable organisation. We recognised a long time ago that the combination of government subsidies that we get for providing care, particularly in residential aged care, and the consumer contributions, and there is very strong restrictions on what we can charge consumers. The combination of those two doesn't really enable us to provide the quality of care outcomes that we believe older Australians deserve to receive. And it's particularly true for what we call supported residents. So they're residents that don't have a lot of financial assets and means, and the only contribution they make to their care and accommodation is a percentage of the pension. It's 85% of the pension. That is all those people contribute. And we've got roughly 250 odd residents that we care for that fit into that fully supported category. So the way Montefiore operates is that it looks at ways that it can cross-subsidise the cost of providing a high level of care and accommodation to those people, because the combined income we receive from the government and from that consumer is roughly $25,000 per annum less than the actual cost of providing the care to that person. And so that's a huge deficit for the organisation to carry. And so on the plus side, we have people that have financial means to pay full fees. We have home care divisions that can generate some surpluses for us. And that enables us to cross-subsidise the cost of providing care and services to everyone, irrespective of their financial circumstances. So that's I think is probably where that question is coming from, and I hope that's helped answer it. I don't see any more questions in the chat. So what I might do, we've got a bit less than 10 minutes to go, so maybe I'll just go around and just any final summing up or final comments from everybody on anything that we've covered today and the service we provide. So maybe I started with you, Amanda, so maybe starting again with you, your closing comments.
Yeah, I think for our business division, it's important that we take the time to get to know our client. Don't leave it too late to apply for a home care package. You will still maintain your independence. We really do, I guess, adjust our care to what your needs are and what you're looking for. And we take the time to sit down with you and go through everything so that you have full understanding before you sign. And we're just down in Double Bay, so anytime you feel like popping in or walking past, please pop in and say hello, because we'd love to show you our wonderful business and share with you some more information.
Fantastic. Thanks, Amanda. Jill, any closing comments from you?
Yes, very similar to Amanda. Don't leave it too late. I think a lot of people still think that retirement living or independent living is the same as aged care. It isn't. It's vastly different. I would highly encourage everybody to come and take a look. We're running a series of seminars. We have these morning seminars, 10:30 to 12:30, and we're running them through April. Come and join us. You're more than welcome, and we'll show you around the village. And also, we also invite people to come along and have breakfast in the morning with the residents. It's a great opportunity. You can sit with them, and they're always very keen to have a chat and explain how it all works. And there's a lovely buzz. I think peak hours about 9 a.m. But please get in contact with us, and we'll certainly organise a visit for you if you'd like to do that.
All right. And Thomas, over to you.
I echo the don't leave it too late part, but I suppose if I was to say one takeaway message from today is there is experts out there that genuinely are just trying to help. And I think through all of these processes, whether it's in whatever part of that continuum of care people are in, being able to reach out and get some support around what decisions may even need to be made can be really valuable. And so reaching out to us, or perhaps there's other providers out there that would also do the same, but I can certainly recommend heartily Montefiore as a provider of excellence, just to get some guidance and help. And knowing that that's available if you do hit that crisis point can be really valuable. So reach out for help. That would be my final thought.
Okay, thank you, guys. And to that end, following the seminar, I think we've got most people's contact details. We will be sending out information to support what we've just said. Contact details of help at home and village and residential aged care. So if anybody wants to reach out, please reach out and contact us. I just think there's one last chat's quickly coming.
There is.
Yep, it sounds easier to access services than it may actually be. Is it possible to nominate service providers? Yes, it is. You can nominate whoever you want. Also, what other kinds of cleaning and gardening services under home care? Whatever you want, basically. Is that right, Amanda?
Yeah, I think how I'm reading that, though, is if you've got your own cleaner or your own gardener, are you able to use them under your home care package? I think that's how I'm reading it. Apologies if I've got it wrong.
Oh, okay.
The answer is yes. So what we do is we create a service agreement. We send it to your supplier or service provider of choice for gardening and for cleaning. That being said, we do have quite a few business agreements in place and partnerships with providers from anything from prepared meals, gardening services, home care, home cleaning services, window cleaning services, home modifications, because we're using them so often. But in regards to the second part of the question, also what are the kinds of cleaning and gardening services under home care? It's driven by what level package you're on. So if you are just going to use your package to have home cleaning services or domestic assistance or some gardening services, you may not have enough, depending on what the charges are, to get other services. That's why we sit down with each client and create, yes, thanks, package one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with a package one, you would absolutely be able to get your home cleaned. And with gardening services, because we are bound by the department's guidelines on what we can do, what we can spend and what we can't spend, it's important that we share that with you at the beginning of our journey together. So we could do mowing, we could gurney, slippery paths from all the rain we've had, so we keep you safe. There's other small gardening services, but we couldn't go in and do a whole landscape around the pool or around that, because that's not using the government's money the way it's intended to. So absolutely, with a level 1 package, you would be able to get some gardening services and some cleaning services.
Great, thanks, Amanda. All right, I don't see any more questions. What about physio and podiatry? Again, I think it depends on the level of package and whether you can afford it. But if it fits within your funding package, then you can receive physio and podiatry services. Yeah?
Yes.
All right. Well, look, I think we've done pretty well. We've managed, by my clock, 3 minutes shy of the hour, so we've done well. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, team, for your contribution. I hope everybody's, that has tuned in has enjoyed the conversation. I hope it's helped demystify a little bit the aged care process. And like we said, please feel free to reach out to us if we can be of any more assistance or provide any more information for you. And with that, I wish everybody a good night. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.